Mike and Tom are registered with Stewart Partners Global Advisory LLC.
Common Sense Finance with Mike Wiginton and Tom Farrell of HL Wiginton Capital Management, an independent investment and financial planning firm in downtown Jasper. Mike is a chartered financial analyst charter holder, and Tom is a certified financial planner professional. They are here to discuss and give their thoughts on current financial and economic matters. Now, with Common Sense Finance, here are Mike and Tom.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Common Sense Finance. This is Tom Farrell. I'm Mike Wiginton. And so this is, for me, a bit of an interesting podcast. And I'm probably going to accuse Tom of like stealing my ideas a little bit, maybe a lot, like Little Richard, you know, had his music stolen, so he says. Anyway, so the name, if we're going to name this podcast today, we would, I think we would agree, we would call it Mixed Signals. And really what it's about is this conversation that's been going on for a bit about, are we in a recession, are we not, what constitutes a recession, and you know, I had a conversation with a guy not too long ago that I actually think a lot of, and he's an economist by training. We don't particularly agree all the time, but I do respect his opinion. And I said, look here, and I pulled up one of my economics textbooks from 1985, and I said, you know, you were taught that, we were taught straight out that 2 consecutive quarters of GDP contraction, it was GNP, gross national product back then, contraction. Okay, because there's no such thing as negative growth. That's an oxymoron with an emphasis on moron. Okay, that there's no such thing as negative growth, but 2 consecutive quarters of contraction was defined a recession. And so now there's all this conversation because, you know, we just had a second quarter a few weeks ago, second quarter print, and it was negative. You know, first quarter was negative, and there's all this talk, we're not in a recession and there's too much. And so the pushback on that is, well, there's other data to be considered. And there's this entity called the National Bureau of Economic Research. We're going to talk a little bit about them. But I'm saying, okay, look, you know, we're getting into, you know, to everybody wants to get away from objective data points that we could rely on to, well, it's my feeling or opinion, and I have thoughts about that we can discuss. But all these mixed signals, because it is very difficult, and really, where are we, and what should the average person be looking at, because we know they're getting mixed signals from the media.
Yes, and depending on what you're watching or who you're listening to or who you're reading, you know, so yeah, we're not in a recession because look at this number or look at that. So we wanted to give some actual data here that we've, you know, perused through and picked up and discuss a little bit about what's going on with the economy right now. So some things that would indicate a healthier economy, capital expenditures. So in the last year, actual capital expenditures have grown more than stock repurchases. So that's an indication that companies are trying to grow their businesses, or, you know, at least make their businesses more efficient.
They feel good about the future, or they'd be pulling back.
That's right. They're investing money in their business. The unemployment rate is the second one to look at that would indicate a healthy economy. It's right now, it's still at near or at historic lows of 3.5%.
We just had an employment number that was way above estimates.
Yes.
The stock market reacted to it.
And then the last thing, and I know we talked about this earlier, is consumer spending is still pretty strong, pretty robust. So, and that's a big chunk of the
consumer spending is three quarters of GDP is consumer spending, and it certainly is intact.
Yeah, and so who knows how long those positive trends will continue, but those are positive trends if the numbers that we're getting from, and most of these coming from the government, are accurate. So now on the flip side of that, a few things that would be negative, or, you know, would indicate maybe not so healthy growing economy. Inflation is still extremely high. I know last week, you know, actually it was earlier this week, they came out at the year-over-year inflation dropped from 9.1% to 8.5%. Well, and we all probably know, if you have filled up your vehicle with gas in the last few weeks, gas prices have come down a lot, and that, I would say, that would account for that drop and then some. Because if you look at other items that they use to count inflation, food, for example. So if you are a person that likes to eat food, and I know most of the people that I know do, and some of them a lot more than others, then the inflation on food is up 13.1% year over year. That's a big jump. If you want to go get some eggs right now, I know you like to eat eggs, 38% increase in the cost of eggs just this year. That's not year over year, that's just for the year. I know they break out, there's certain items of food they break out like beef and things like that, and every bit of that is up more than the actual headline inflation number. So inflation, while, you know, hey, it came down a little bit, I think you're going to probably end up contributing a lot of that to just the gasoline prices have come down so much.
And we don't, our point is not to dwell on any one of these information points. It's almost spend too much on time on that, but the idea about inflation gets to be a little silly to me because it's not linear. It doesn't move in a, you know, from the, I guess, the viewer's standpoint, it doesn't move in a straight line either way. So just because it's off from its peak, does that mean now we're on a down slope? How do you get that? How do you know that that next month it's not lower, but the month after that it's higher, and the month after that it's lower, then higher, then lower, then lower, then you get the picture, okay? And so I mean, as a matter of fact, most things are volatile. I can't think of that many things right off the top of my head that are linear. So the idea that it's peaked, I don't know, that seems premature to me.
Yeah.
Because we still have supply chain problems. And you're not going to fix supply chain problems until you get people back to work. And people in these economies, you know, the Chinese economy has been affected probably the worst that I know of by these enforced lockdowns.
Yeah.
So you're not going to fix the supply chain problems until you get everybody back to work.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, and we can provide the chart to look at here, but the worker productivity, you know, we looked at that.
Don't we have that chart?
Yeah, we have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have Oliver put that up.
Yeah, I don't have it on me. I'll send it to you.
Right.
But as you can see in the chart, worker productivity in the last year or two has really gone down a ton. So is that because people are, and I dare breach the subject right now because we don't have a lot of time, but is that because people work from home and not as productive, or because typically if you're in times of recession, companies cut back, they lay off, you know, things like that. So I mean, we'll see how that plays out.
Well, that's my big takeaway from this whole argument, or the point I want to make is that I think that you are in, and you know, I've said this before, I think you're in a time like no other that we've had, because I don't care if you did have a Spanish flu before, you didn't have the internet then, okay, you didn't have social media then, and so forth, okay. Certainly the nature of our economy has changed from a manufacturing-driven one to a service-driven one. So I think we're in a time like no other in the history of this country. I question some of the legacy measures. I'm not saying throw them out, quit looking at them. I'm saying I question their ability, whether it's payroll data, whether it's jobs data, you know, unemployment reports, whether they're really truly measuring things accurately. Okay. I'm not even saying that anybody's trying to measure things. I have questions about the way they produce the CPI, for example, okay? And so, but I'm forget about all that. I'm saying do our legacy measures, the measures that we pay attention to so much every single month, are they really measuring things accurately today? I can't help but wonder about that. You know, we read the report recently where absences from work because of COVID were at their highest since COVID started.
Yeah.
All right. You know, you cannot deny. I said this the other day. You cannot deny the yield curve is from 1 to 7 years is inverted as of yesterday. You know, it quite significantly. All right. And so you cannot deny the historic predictive history of an inverted yield curve predicting a recession. Now, when does that so-called recession happen? Does it happen 6 months later to as much as 18 months later? I mean, anywhere in between. That's true. The two negative back-to-back negative reports on GDP contraction. I don't think you ignore that or brush it aside. I think that's wrong. But I do agree you are in a time where you've got all these mixed reports, and it's very, very difficult to get an accurate reading on.
It is, and you certainly don't want to make any decisions based on one set of data or one source of information. I mean, it really takes some time to gather from a lot of different sources and look at it to help you make a decision about, either where you're going to invest your money or what you're going to do, how you're going to budget, things like that. So, that's basically what we wanted to touch on.
Anything else?
That's it.
Last word?
Nope.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Controversy. I can't understand.